the grim dark of the far future, there is only war. Throughout history, we have seen untold horrors and misery inflicted on humanity by the forces of chaos and their associated ruinous powers, with trillions upon trillions of lives across countless worlds being decimated, enslaved, or corrupted by the evil forces of chaos. Humanity fights a constant pitched battle against the dark tide of corruption that seeks to sweep across the galaxy, especially in the current setting with the opening of the Great Rift. There are those that would stand against the darkness of the warp, including Lionel Johnson, or the Lion. Greetings all, I am your guide, the Archivist. Today I will dive into an overview of the Lion, his rise in power, his final fate, and his eventual return to the setting. The archives hold a vast wealth of knowledge on the first Primarch, Lionel Johnson. Lionel Johnson, also known as the Lion and bearing the titles the First and Primaris Angelus Mortis during his time, served as the Primarch of the First Legion of Space Marines, known as the Dark Angels. After the tumultuous events of the Horus Heresy, L. Johnson and his crusading fleet made their way back home to his world of Caliban, only to be unexpectedly attacked by the Dark Angel forces stationed there, led once by his trusted mentor and surrogate father Luther. Luther, who had been entrusted with Caliban safeguarding in the Lion's absence, succumbed to the temptations of chaos and ultimately betrayed his former mentor, leading a significant portion of the Dark Angels in rebellion against the returning Lion, resulting in the devastation of Caliban and the loss of the Dark Angels Primarch. Referred to as the Fallen Angels by their former comrades in the First Legion, the Dark Angels and their successor chapters, collectively known as the Unforgiven, devoted themselves to the pursuit of the Fallen, aiming to bring them to repent for their betrayal of the Emperor and the Lion after the Second Founding. A closely guarded secret of the Imperium of Man, known only to the Emperor himself, was the fact that the Lion remained alive and in stasis, recuperating within the Dark Angels' mobile fortress monastery, the Rock. Fully healed from his injuries sustained during the fall of Caliban, the Lion awaited his eventual awakening, poised to lead the Dark Angels in a final crusade to safeguard humanity against its myriad existential threats. Finally, during the Arcs of Omen campaign in the Era Indomitus, that moment arrived. The Lion once again traverses the galaxy, ready to lead the Dark Angels in securing the future of mankind. Origins. Before the Great Crusade began, a gestation pod carrying the infant Primarch was mysteriously transported through the warp from the Emperor's gene laboratory beneath the Himalayan mountains and landed on the feudal death world of Caliban in what later would become the Segmentum Obscurus. Caliban was a planet covered with vast forests inhabited by monstrous beasts mutated by chaos due to the planet's proximity to the Eye of Terror. L. Johnson survived in the wild forests far from civilization. The planet housed knightly orders of warrior aristocrats who defended its people and massive fortress monasteries from the great beasts. Despite maintaining some ancient technology from before the Age of Strife, Caliban remained a pre-industrial society where warriors rode to war on horseback. One prominent order was known as the Order, comprised of from both commoners and nobles, whilst other orders were strictly drawn from the Caliban knight nobility. The Lion was not a wild, uncontrollable beast, rather a strategic hunter governed by reason rather than blind fury. When the Knights of Caliban finally discovered him, they deemed him so dangerous that it seemed best to have him killed, treating him as one of the great beasts of the forest due to the resemblance to them. It was the decision of one man, named Luther, that led to bringing him into the realm of mankind and away from that of beasts. As a renowned warrior who defended Caliban for many years, Luther named his charge Lionel Johnson, which meant the Lion, Son of the Forest, in the Calibanite dialect of Low Gothic, and raised him as a Knight of the Order. Luther taught L. Johnson the laws and principles of the Order, guiding him to dispense justice as a man rather than a beast, and giving him a purpose to fight for those beyond mere survival. Caliban was a decaying world, its people besieged by the great beasts lurking in the forest's hidden depths, pushing them to near extinction. The Order, which constructed and manned the great fortresses at its wild borders, struggled to hold back the relentless assaults, succeeding only in slowing their people's destruction, as they were too few to do more than defend their strongholds. L. Johnson was taken to the Order's primary fortress monastery in Alderuk and taught human customs. The Lion rapidly learned to speak and swiftly mastered all necessary aspects of Calibanite culture, surprising everyone including Luther, his mentor, foster father and best friend. Eventually L. Johnson became a formidable warrior within the Order's ranks, never disclosing anything about his years alone in the Caliban's forests, neither then nor later. With Luther at his side, L. Johnson eventually ascended to the highest ranks of the Order. Once competing as equals for honour and glory, the Primarch had now surpassed his mentor and brother. The Primarch reluctantly embraced the adulation and offer to rule all of Caliban after leaving his mentor behind. This wound, inflicted in ignorance, caused the brothers' jealousy to fester in the years to come. The arrival of the Emperor shortly after the victory, claiming his lost son, prevented the wound from healing and Caliban's newfound peace. The Emperor bestowed new glories upon the Lion, granting him command of the First Legion, renaming them the Dark Angels. The Lion would depart for distant terror, bringing his uncompromising and remorseless style of warfare to the Imperial forces. As the watchman at the edge of the Emperor's domain, Lion L. Johnson embodied the ruthless tenacity taught by the Forest of Caliban. He was the first of all the Primarchs, war distilled into its rawest and most fundamental essence, forever changing the galaxy upon his return. After just a few standard years, the Lion had mustered nearly 100,000 warriors, bringing together the vast majority of his legion. He then led them to the ancient stronghold of the First Legion of Grammar. The First Legion of Grammar, where the Council of Masters and Preceptors conclave awaited amid the Legion's rich history and distilled wisdom for battles. There, amidst the relics of the past, Lion L. Johnson reunited his legion. In a legendary hour-long duel, he faced the ceremonial champion of the Council of Masters, Horus Heresy, the master of the Host of Fire. With this final trial concluded, the Primarch consolidated the leadership of the entire Legion under one banner, accepting titles such as Grand Master of the First Legion and High Preceptor of the Order's Militant. Dark Angels, whose oaths had been sworn in blood and sacrifice, watched as the new Primarch swore an oath of his own, sealing a pact between them. As recorded in the books of the Council of Masters, his oath declared, "We are the angels of darkness, and for us there is no peace, no end but war and death. We shall not walk in the golden halls of mankind's future, but stand resolute in the shadows beyond. While we yet draw breath, this Imperium will not fall, and we will not know defeat, for I pledge every warrior, every drop of blood in the Legion, in the name of victory, no matter the cost." His appearance. The Lion was an imposing figure, towering over 9 feet tall like most of the Primarchs, and built like a tank. His rugged, chiseled features and fierce appearance epitomized his nature. However, amidst his formidable visage, he sported long, flowing locks of golden hair, cascading down the sides of his face. Clad in his distinct power armor and equipment, he, like his brethren, exuded a sense of uniqueness. In his era, the colours associated with him were black and white, yet today we recognise the Dark Angels for their signature green and gold. Adorning his armour were magnificent wings on the shoulders and a prominent lion motifs embodying his grandeur. The Lion was a regal figure, at first wearing the rudimentary power armour of the Knights of Caliban before being upgraded to the full Primarch cataphract armour upon being reintroduced into the Imperium by the Emperor. He had a very grim and regal countenance after years of struggle and torment during his youth, and was very reserved and secretive as a result. His regalia is often portrayed as green, and he has the appearance of a knight on most senses of the word, wielding a sword and shield inherently. He is portrayed with long blonde hair and a beard, as well as regalia befitting the Grand Master of his Knight's Order. Upon his return after his long absence from the setting, he is portrayed as being much older but still wise and quiet. He often appears alone and isolated in many of his portrayals due to his secretive and lone wolf nature, which often added to the grim nature of his countenance. Powers and gear. The archives show that the Lion had some very interesting powers and abilities, along with legendary sets of gear. The Lion originally during the Horus Heresy wielded the Lion's Blade, which was a huge sword rumoured to have some form of psychic power, as it glowed green when the Lion wielded it. When you combine this with a massive melee combat prowess, recreate one of the deadliest combinations that the galaxy has ever seen. The Line was almost unmatched in melee combat and dueling, referred to by many others in the galaxy to be the Duelist. Johnson has relinquished the Lion's Blade, his legendary sword from the Horus Heresy. This fated broken weapon remains in the possession of the enigmatic and possibly treacherous Cypher, a mysterious fallen dark angel who has evaded capture for over 1,000 years. Instead, Johnson now wields the Emperor's Shield, a powerful artifact to complement the Emperor's sword bestowed upon his brother Primarch Rabute Guilliman of the Ultramarines. This is symbolic of the roles within the Imperium they are now holding, Guilliman leading the Crusades against the armies of mankind, whilst the Lion is now considered the Warmaster and defender of the Imperium by many. Whilst having the standard high level of psychic ability that most Primarchs do, the Lion has recently been showing evidence of a new ability coming into his possession, the Forest Pocket Dimension. This ability seems to allow the Lion to move across the galaxy at extreme speed using either a dimension or some form of extremely fast travel. This ability may also explain why he's so adept at dueling, as he could move faster than thought possible. Primarch Guilliman remarked on this more than once, stating that the Lion could move faster than he could even see. The Lion really was one of the greatest close combat individuals that the galaxy had ever seen. His deeds. The Dark Angels actively participated in the decisive campaigns of the last Rangdan Xenocides. They calibrated in combat with Titans hailing from the Legio Griffunicus, Legio Vulturum, Legio Cardianos, along with other Zanite Mechanicum forces from the Forge World of Xana II. The conflict commenced in 862 M30 as the Rangda, an alien threat previously believed to be eradicated during the initial First Rangdan Xenocide, launched a large-scale assault on the northern territories of the Imperium. For nearly a solar decade, the seasoned warriors of the First Legion, now known as the Dark Angels, valiantly fought to repel an enemy that posed an existential threat to all human inhabited worlds. During those dark times, the Lion, also known as the Primarch of the Dark Angels, forged his own legacy as a formidable and relentless force of retribution. Amid the initial harrowing years of the conflict, when the Imperium faced overwhelming odds against the Xenos and their allies, the Lion emerged as a steadfast and resolute presence in the midst of chaos. Unlike his brother Sanguinius, known for his noble heroism, or Horus Lupercal, known for his dark humour, the Lion was a silent and unyielding bastion in the Tempest. He did not seek to inspire loyalty or any other virtue, but rather unflinchingly confronted the enemy at its strongest points, fortified by his own pride and confidence, and in turn drew others to stand by his side solely out of a sense of honour and duty. The Lion took many campaigns during the Great Crusade against various worlds, developing a reputation for efficiency and power. In adherence to their creed of strength and excellence, the First Legion, known as the Dark Angels, dedicated themselves to furthering the Emperor's cause during the final days of the Great Crusade. They steadfastly stood against the gravest perils of the galaxy, their bright swords and unyielding determination marking their presence wherever the advance of the Imperial conquest faltered. Lionel Johnson, having long departed from the follies of Caliban, remained unwavering in his commitment to the vision of humanity, embodied by his Gene Father, engaging tirelessly in every battle that came his way. Eschewing indulgence in parades, fortress construction, or petty disputes with his kin, Lionel Johnson led his legion from one conflict to the next with steadfast resolve. Gradually they began to distance themselves from the events of the Great Crusade and the camaraderie of their fellow legionary Astartes, disdaining those who focused on trivial matters while formidable adversaries of power and strength awaited. As the years and wars passed, a growing gulf emerged between the Dark Angels and the other legions of the Imperium. Only a handful of the Primarchs felt compelled to seek out their solitary brother, while he and his legion honed their skills to a razor-sharp edge. The Heresy. During the Horus Heresy, the formidable and self-reliant Dark Angels emerged as a potent and independent force, adept at executing large-scale campaigns and enforcement actions on their own. The Warmaster Horus, aware of their capabilities, strategically displaced them to the fringes of the Imperium to prevent their intervention in his plans. Nonetheless, as the heresy unfolded, the might of the Dark Angels became evident as they triumphed over the Night Lords at Thramas and wreaked havoc across the southern galactic zone, relentlessly crushing traitor strongholds. During the tumultuous ruinstorm, which obscured the light of the Astronomicon and made warp travel nearly impossible, the Imperium found itself divided in the wake of the Battle of Calth. The Dark Angels realised that returning to Terra for its defence was unfeasible, even with the Chicholka engine at their disposal. In a stroke of luck, they locked onto the beacon of the enigmatic Pharos device out in the world of Sotha, which steered the First Legion fleet safely through the warp to the capital world of Macragge in the realms of Ultramar. There, they were welcomed by Rabute, Guilliman and Sanguinius, whose Blood Angels Legion had also been guided to Ultramar by the Pharos. The trio of Primarchs played crucial roles in establishing the Imperium Secundus to continue to fight against the traitors and safeguard the Emperor's vision. Guilliman declared Sanguinius as the rightful heir to the Emperor and appointed him as the new ruler of Imperium Secundus. Lionel Johnson was named the Lord Protector of this new empire of humanity and Supreme Commander of all its military forces, with a role akin to that of War Master. Sadly, the establishment of Imperium Secundus was marred when Kurz escaped from the Invincible Reason and wreaked havoc on Macragge, seeking to sow terror and chaos. Both Guilliman and the Lion eventually confronted the cornered Kurz. Their efforts to eradicate him failed as the Night Lord's Primarch had set a cunning trap, who brought down an entire chapel on the two Primarchs using planted explosives and made his escape. During the intense Battle of Alba Mons, the Lion finally confronted the elusive Night Lord's Primarch, leading to a fierce confrontation between the two. Despite the brutal nature of the conflict, the Lion emerged victorious and questioned his brother about his allegiance to the Emperor. In response, Kurz simply uttered, "Why not?" Kurz elaborated that he was plagued by uncontrollable inner turmoil, describing a relentless struggle against the metaphorical monster in his mind. Despite having his brother at his mercy, the Lion couldn't bring himself to end Kurz's life, resorting instead to further physical aggression. Subsequently, the Lion forcibly removed Kurz's backpack and subjected him to severe physical trauma, leaving him paralysed after breaking his spine. The Lion brought the grievously wounded Comrade Kurz before Sanguinius and Guilliman to face a trial. During the subsequent triumvirate, Kurz staunchly defended his actions and refused to accept guilt, arguing that each Primarch was designed for a specific purpose. Kurz claimed that he was merely following his inner nature and therefore had committed no wrongdoing. Adding to the escalating tension, the Night Lord's Primarch accused Guilliman and the Lions of the secret involvement in orbital bombardment, contrary to Guilliman's directives to avoid civilian casualties. This accusation further fueled the hostility, prompting the Lion to attempt to end Kurz's life before being restrained by Sanguinius, with Guilliman displaying his fury by breaking the Lion's sword in his armoured grasp. Following the dismissal of the triumvirate by Sanguinius, the Lion was exiled from Imperium Secundus. As a result, the Dark Angels swiftly withdrew from Macragge shortly after taking their leave. When the Siege of Terra began, the Lion aimed to divert traitor forces from the Throne World by attacking their Legion homeworlds. This led to the destruction of several traitor homeworlds such as Chemos of the Emperor's Children and Barbarous of the Death Guard by the Dark Angels, acts that the Lion took great satisfaction in. During the Siege of Terra, the Astronomicon ceased to function for the Dark Angels fleet. Believing that Terra had fallen to Horus, L. Johnson abandoned the idea of heading towards Terra and instead focused on seeking vengeance by targeting as much of the traitor's territory as possible. L. Johnson justified his actions by claiming that attacking traitor homeworlds would draw in reinforcements away from Terra to his troops. Without the guidance of the Astronomicon, the Dark Angels relied on the Chicholka engine for navigating through the warp. The Lion eventually commanded the Dark Angels fleet to return to Deliverance, the homeworld of the Raven Guard Legion where Corvus Corax and Leman Russ of the Space Wolves Legions were gathering their forces. The Lion questions Corax's absence from the major war fronts, but Russ reminded him of the survival of the Space Wolves was still valuable even if they couldn't reach Terra. Russ pledged to join L. Johnson's Crusade of Vengeance, along with the Space Wolf warriors equipped with the new Mark VI Corvus power armor. However, Corax was hesitant to commit his heavily damaged legion to what he saw as a needlessly vindictive waste of resources for emotional gratification, and only assigned a small expeditionary force of the Raven Guard to accompany the Space Wolves and the Dark Angels. Eventually, on the Lion's orders, the Dark Angels set a course for Terra, but arrived too late to influence the outcome of the Siege of Terra, or prevent the Emperor from being mortally wounded by Horus and interred on the Golden Throne. His final fate. After the devastating events of the Horus Heresy, L. Johnson returned to Caliban to regroup and recover from the shock betrayal of the Emperor. However, upon their arrival, the Dark Angel's void ships were unexpectedly attacked by Caliban's own defences, revealing that Luther, L. Johnson's once trusted mentor, had succumbed to the corruption of chaos. In a fit of fury and determination to cleanse the planet of chaos, L. Johnson ordered a relentless orbital bombardment, leading to the destructive clash between him and the corrupted Luther. The fierce battle resulted in the devastation of the planet and irreversible damage to their homeworld. The epic clash between Luther and the Line was immense, culminating in a psychic onslaught that seemed to fatally wound L. Johnson. In the aftermath, Luther came to a sudden realization of his own jealousy and anger and crumbled to the ground, overcome with remorse. However, it was too late for L. Johnson. The vengeful, ruinous powers of chaos, realizing they had lost another pawn, unleashed a colossal warp storm that ravaged the planet's surface, leaving only the Order's monastery intact, shielded by its powerful defences. Those Dark Angels who had been swayed by Luther to embrace chaos were engulfed by the warp, scattering across the galaxy, forever deemed the fallen angels. Caliban itself was torn asunder by the assault of chaos. When the Dark Angels descended upon the remnants of Caliban, they discovered Luther mumbling about L. Johnson being taken by the enigmatic Watchers of the Dark, prophesying his return and forgiveness. Despite their efforts, the Dark Angels found no sign of their Primarch. Following a fierce clash with Luther on Caliban, Lionel Johnson endured a devastating psychic assault that left him on the brink of death. Temporarily engulfed in the turbulent warp, he fought for survival. Although Luther emerged from the conflict, his mental state was deteriorated. Leading to his capture by the Dark Angels. Sequestered within the depths of the rock, which stood as the remnants of Caliban, Luther was confined to a stasis cell, harbouring the weight of his transgressions against the chapter's Primarch. His presence remained a closely guarded secret known only to the successive Supreme Grand Masters of the Dark Angels. Access to his cell necessitated employment of the Sword of Secrets, the revered chaptered artifact symbolising the authority of the Supreme Grand Master. After being spirited away into the warp during Caliban's obliteration, L. Johnson resurfaced and was ushered into a concealed and inaccessible chamber at the heart of the rock by the enigmatic Watchers of the Dark. Placed into a dreamless slumber to safeguard his existence, this clandestine arrangement was known exclusively to the Emperor of Mankind himself, who, despite his entrapment upon the Golden Throne, remained vigilant. Even the Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels was unaware of this ultimate secret. However, the murmurs among the Dark Angels hinted at the possibility of the Line's eventual return to lead a final crusade, with the aim of securing the Dark Angels' most significant triumph for mankind and bestowing justice and redemption upon the fallen angels. Little did they know that this legend held a deeper truth, concealed within the heart of their own fortress monastery, the slumbering Primarch. In the era Indomitus, amidst the Arks of Omen campaign, Lionel Johnson finally awoke from his 10,000-year slumber within the rock. While his brother Primarch Rebuta Gilliman excelled in matters of command and administration, Lionel Johnson was always the first and foremost a warrior and hunter. Now awakened in a galaxy consumed by darkness and chaos, he embarked on a mission of vengeance amongst the stars. Even before news of his return spread across the wider galaxy, the legend of the Lion had already begun to circulate from planet to planet within Imperial space. Disparate worlds were united by tales of a mysterious figure who emerged from mist-wreathed passages to vanquish terrifying monsters. Some referred to him as the Cowled Giant, or the Unforgiving Knight, or even mistakenly as the Emperor Incarnate, and his arrival was always heralded by an apparition of ancient forest fading from the ether. The true nature of his warp travel remains known only to the Primarch himself, but during his slumber beneath the rock, his dreams often wandered back to the Calibanite forests of his youth. Could it be that in his restless sleep, he traversed other worlds guided by the spirits of that same arboreal realm, lost in the destruction of Caliban? He keeps his own counsel, but he certainly understands the practical applications of this ability, as if from nowhere through the warp. And so I have now covered the content for this video. If there's anything that has been missed, please share them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this content, please remember to like the subscribe and like waypoints down below. In the grim dark of the far future, there is only war.